Hey, Fierce Visionaries. Today we are debunking some lies that I'm sure you've told yourself. They are really stupid lies, actually. And it's things like, you don't deserve this. I remember telling myself this on multiple occasions. It's, who do you think you are? You can't do this. They're just lies. And today, I really want to make sure that I show you how to understand that you do deserve these things and that you can do these things and that you should do these things because we're all waiting on you to unleash your something amazing out into the world. So, let's jump in because I've got a few things that I really want to share so that you can ultimately stop sabotaging yourself. So you probably started watching this video or clicked on this video because you've tried manifestations before and they just weren't working for you, right? And maybe you've done all the sayings, you've done all the affirmations, you've sang kumbaya, you've done all the things that they ask you to do, and nothing has come from it. You have not seen any improvement. And I want to show you that it's likely not you, it's probably your environment and your reality at the time and the moment that you're trying to do those affirmations. And there are a few critical things that you must understand about concepts with manifesting that can actually hold you back quite a bit when you're looking at your environment and you're looking at your reality and trying to move through that in order to create the manifestation and to come up with that manifestation. So I'm first going to go through three different concepts that I need you to understand before you start manifesting. And then I'm going to show you 5 things that could be holding you back in your manifestation process. Now, as we move into these things, I'm going to give you a lot of information, but what I want you to understand is that it does require practice. You do have to continuously practice manifestations. And it's not something that's going to happen tomorrow. It could, but a lot of times it's a bigger goal that you have to be working towards. And so it does require practice to train your brain to get there. Okay. Before we move on, I want to welcome you back to the Practice Your Perfect podcast. If you're new here, my name is Ashley Tate and I am your fairy goal mother. And today we're going to be talking about what manifestation is and why it's so damn hard to do. Then I'm going to show you the 5 steps to start manifesting the life you want so we can practice our way to success together. Now, one of the premises of manifestation and starting to learn how to manifest is that it can be so tough to literally envision or feel something that is completely opposite of what you are currently experiencing and feeling. But that's exactly what manifestation is. It's learning to use your mind to transform that feeling into something that you want it to become. But one of the things I often feel like is people talk about manifestation, but they also forget to talk about the fact that it does require continuous practice. And it's not an easy practice to do often because it really does take a lot of discipline and it takes a lot of retraining of the brain. Now, to understand this first concept, I want you to understand that where focus goes, energy flows. If you can think back to when Teslas came out, remember everybody knew what the Tesla looked like. It was almost like you were playing with your reticular activation system, which is the part of your brain that is very selective on what's relevant to us, right? So if you've ever been pregnant, if you're a woman, if you've ever had children, when you were pregnant or you just found out you were pregnant, it's like you could see all the pregnant women everywhere, like everywhere you went, the store, you just noticed pregnant women everywhere you went. And also the same thing goes for like a specific car model, like the Tesla. Maybe if that was something you were interested in or something you liked, or you just thought it was unique and different, you would always see a Tesla. You could always point out and find a Tesla. That was your reticular activation system working, like working at its highest level, right? It was getting rid of all of the other things so that you could actually see the Tesla model, or you could actually see the pregnant women, right? So those are exactly how the reticular activation system works and what you want to basically activate when you are trying to manifest. So by focusing on your goals and your positive thinking, you have to condition this RAS system to prioritize your thoughts and experiences that align with what your ultimate destination of success is. Now, I talk a lot about your known ultimate destination of success, which is your kudos. And that's where you know that you want to end up. All of the stuff in between is just really part of the journey. But where you want to end up is your known ultimate destination of success. And we'll talk about how to figure that out in some other videos. All day, every day, we are bombarded with thoughts and experiences that we can choose to hold on to. So, as an example, I like to use when people have road rage. Sometimes people get upset because, they don't like something you did on the road or they flip you off or whatever the case. And when I talk to my kids about this, I always say, I could choose to take that in. I could choose to get upset and I could choose to be upset about it all day and think about why they did whatever they did. But if I just decide that this is not an experience that aligns with what I envision as my ultimate destination of success, then it doesn't really matter. And it's kind of becoming a little detached from what happens in your everyday world, the way that other people react. You don't have to take those things in. And your reticular activation system then begins to be able to filter out those experiences that no longer matter to you, filter out those interactions that no longer matter, and they're not moving you closer to your ultimate goal. That's the impact of a reticular activation system. Now, you can actually think of this system as the glass half full, or you can think of it as the glass half empty. Some of us walk around thinking that the glass is half empty, and that's how you're going to filter your experiences and your life and everything that's happening to you. But some of us think of the glass half full. And when you do that, you're thinking through things in a positive light, like, oh, I missed my meeting, or, oh, I didn't get that light. I didn't get the green light. You start to think, okay, maybe there was a reason for that, right? You kind of let the universe play out in whatever way it's supposed to. And you're not causing all this friction with yourself and the ultimate goal. If something doesn't apply to your ultimate goal, you just let it go. It's that simple when you're activating your reticular activation system. And that's what you're actually using to help complement you achieving your goals. Now, the second concept is fear. So I think that a lot of times people talk about manifestation, but we forget to talk about fear that comes along with it. And that's why at the very beginning of the video, I talked about believing that you deserve this, or believing that you can't do something, or who do you think you are? All of those things are just fear creeping in, and that's totally normal. And I once heard a monk say that fear is always with you. And if you want to move past fear, you just have to bring it along with you and understand that it's always going to be there, acknowledge it, and move on. So, as an example, every time I go scuba diving, I have to face the fact that the fear doesn't go away and that I actually have to say positive affirmations before I duck my head underwater. I feel like fear comes in stages, and the stages we go through are the sink or swim phase. And that's not because of scuba diving, but the sink or swim phase is really just the phase of like, we have to do this. Okay. You have to go on an interview. You don't have a choice. I like to think of this like labor, or, like having a baby, because, okay, you have this baby and you have got to birth the child. You can't decide that you don't want to have the child anymore. It's not a decision that you can turn back on. So you have to birth the baby. Like, there's no changing it. That's a sink or swim fear. You have to trust the doctors around you. You have to trust the nurses. You have to trust yourself to go through this process. Another process would be like going on a job interview. If you want to have a job, you have to go on the interview. So if you have any fear related to that, talking in front of people or feeling like you're not going to do a great job, you have to move past those thoughts in order to get the job, because there's an end goal. And so that I believe is one of the first phases of fear, the sink or swim phase. Now, the second phase is being courageous. Now, this would be something like starting a business or choosing to adopt a child. And the reason I say that is because the courageous aspect is actually making the choice. Like, you understand that there are risks involved, but you're making the choice to actually go ahead and do whatever this is that makes you fearful. So the third phase of fear is, how when you meet a 70-year-old and they're like, I don't care. I don't care what anybody thinks. I'm doing me. I'm wearing my stuff the way I want to. I'm saying what I want to. I'm doing what I want to. That's that third phase of fear. And that is really the phase that I feel like is the most fun for everybody. So I hope that everyone can reach that third phase of fear. But the goal is to understand that fear never is going to leave you. You will always have some form of fear. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's more along the lines of just acknowledging that it's there. The key here is to understand that even the most successful people deal with fear and they deal with self doubt on a regular basis. Functioning in light of this is why you have to stay fierce on your goals and prime your brain with this next step. Okay, so the next step is all about the law of assumption. Now, the law of assumption was created by Neville Goddard, and it's a way of reframing your brain into truly believing that you already have the thing that you want. Now, this is where most people get stuck on manifesting. Like they say, okay, you have to believe that you already have it. That's where the affirmations and all of this comes in. But it also requires you to believe in the power of positive thinking. That like energy begets like energy, right? I'm essentially telling the universe, I already have the car. I love the way the car feels. I love the way the car drives. I already am successful. I already have the money I need. And what that does is it allows you to start also thinking about things in a different light, right? If you approach a situation and you believe that you already can afford the situation, you already understand this situation, you already know how to act in this situation, it's very different than coming from a fear based place or a negative mindset where you're like, I don't know if I'm even worthy of being here. You're going to act differently. Your affect is going to be different. The way you walk into a room is going to be different. And so this type of reframing and thinking by Neville Goddard really does impact every aspect of your life. It's not just if you're going to get the thing that you wanted, it's also a way of affecting your affect, your self belief, your confidence, how you show up to other people, and what they then believe of you, and then how they treat you. And you can debunk so many myths about you when you approach the world and your life this way. As an example, when I was younger, I was walking by someone's house and my teeth were not straight. They still aren't completely straight, but that's on me. But anyway, they weren't completely straight. But anyway, the man said to me, "Oh, you have such a beautiful smile." And it literally changed the way that I went through the rest of my life. From then on, I smiled at everyone. The reason why was because I really enjoyed the interaction with the person. It wasn't necessarily that it made me feel prettier or it made me feel anything special in that way. It was just like, wow, I impacted somebody and I loved that interaction. I want to repeat that over and over and over. And so I just kept testing that over and over and over, and it always worked. The interaction with people when I would smile would be always, in general, a very positive one. And I'll explain that a little bit later on how you can do that in your life too when we get into the actual steps. So, what I want to leave you with here is that manifesting alone isn't enough. So now we actually have to do the work. So, a lot of times people will say, I just, I manifested, I thought about it, I've been talking to myself about it, but there is work that actually has to be done in order to make the manifestation come true. So, here are the 5 steps to start practicing the art of manifestation if you've never done it before. So, here we go, manifestation in 5 steps. Here's the deal. Number 1 is you need to kill your current reality. So we all live in, of course, this reality that we all can see, feel, smell, breathe, everything. But in order for you to activate your reticular activation system, you've got to kill that current reality and say, I'm going to create a reality for myself in my mind that I want to become. And you don't worry about how it's going to happen or all the steps it's going to take for you to get there. You just move through the current place that you're in order to get to the next step. Trusting yourself and trusting that the 3 concepts I mentioned earlier will help you clear the space and get rid of the negativity. And that's something that you have to constantly work on again. So don't look at your current reality to dictate what your future is going to look like, because you're going to change some things. You're going to do some things. You're going to be doing the work. It would be like an artist throwing paint on a canvas and saying, okay, I'm not going to paint anymore because it didn't come out right. No, they have to shape it and mold it, and they have to paint over it and let it dry and go back and do more. And that's what you're doing with your life. You are essentially working with the canvas that you currently have, and then you're changing it and molding it and adding some here and adding some there and changing things around to create the final product. And that takes time, and it takes effort, and it takes practice. So, and it's going to be a few iterations, but you don't give up on the journey because you can't see the land, right? You just have to keep going. So I want you to start with the end in mind. Now, this is bringing in that law of assumption. Think as big as you can for right now. I'm not saying that this is going to be your ultimate goal, because that takes time and that takes effort, and we're not getting to that in one video. But start with the end of what you can see as of right now. So if it's that you have a new job, or you have a business that you've started and it's very successful, if that's as far as you can see, and those are the amount of details that you can see, you start with that and write down whatever that is, whatever you can see. Now, that's great. And that's the law of assumption. We want to really work on that. We're going to keep on building on that. But the next thing is probably the most important, because this is where it gets concrete. Start with your future self. What would be like your perfect day? What would your, perfect routine be? That's what we want to know. Like, what is your perfect routine? What is your perfect day? What is it that is going to, maybe even something that you've done before that worked? A lot of times I will, when I'm going through a reset, I will think about what was working that actually worked well for me, even if the circumstances were different. So if I was getting up and I was working out at 5:30 in the morning, and then I was drinking a smoothie, and then I was drinking my matcha, and then I was doing this, and I was taking my vitamins, and I was taking this supplement, and it made me feel amazing. Well, I'm going to write those things down. I don't know yet if it's going to get into my ultimate, like, final routine, but I know that I need to keep track of, like, those things were working for me. And that might be something that you want to try again. So think about what your future self would be doing if they were running a business, if they were starting a new job, if they were in a relationship. How would you dress every day? How would you come home every day? What would your affect be like? Would you be happy? Would you be upset every day? Would you be complaining about things? How would you be? Would you be going out all the time? Like, what would that look like for you if you had everything that you wanted? And that's where those routines really come into place, because we already know what it takes. Like, we know what it takes to be healthy, but a lot of us are like, yeah, I just don't want to do that. Like, it takes a lot of discipline. I'd have to not eat the cookies. I'd have to not eat the cake. And I'm okay with what I look like right now. Okay. But when shit hits the fan, you might say, you know what? I'm ready to be disciplined, and I'm ready to be healthy, and I'm ready to get rid of sugar, blah, 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 blah. But we have to write that out. You have to visualize it. And then on top of that, you have to practice it. Now, the next part of this is starting small and building up. So we want to acknowledge fear here. We want to acknowledge that, yes, it's scary to think about the future self, and scary to think about, like, what if I fail and I had these big aspirations and this big manifestation and it doesn't actually come to fruition. But that's just fear talking. It's fear. If you can see it, you can become it. Okay. So micro manifestations are something that I think are a good place to start when you start to feel that, that fear creeping in. And I say to start small because these are things like thinking about a parking spot, or thinking about, walking into the store and be able to get what you want right away and be out in 5 minutes because, you were able to go through an open line or something. These are very simple manifestations. But if you think about it, you actually are doing these manifestations on a daily basis, whether you realize it or not. That reticular activation system is either working for you because you've trained it, or it's working against you because you are thinking negatively. So you have to realize what's most important to you. And are you going to train that reticular activation system, or are you going to just let it run rogue and be wild and do its own thing and hope and pray that things come your way? And I'm hoping that you're going to go with, you're going to train it. So You have to experiment with these things, and I want you to keep on trying. Now, the last step of all of this is to begin designing your life by practicing your systems. So, we talked about micro goals, we talked about micro manifestations, we talked about looking at the future self, right? But in order to really see how this is going to work, you have to work backwards from number two, which was to start with the end. So when you start with the end of where you want to end up, whatever that biggest vision that you could see was, you're going to start with the end of your vision, and then you're going to create a perfect routine that would actually work if you were in that vision, right? So if I see myself, with a six pack abs, and I'm looking great, I'm feeling great. I know that it's not going to get me there if I don't drink a ton of water. I'm not going to get there if I don't watch my food. And then I'm going to start creating those things that were going to help me get there. Maybe I have to start doing meal prep. Maybe I have to start, getting rid of sugar. And what you'll realize is when your brain is ready to make those choices, it will start to make those choices for you. And it's up to you if you want to be disciplined and you want to follow what you put into practice, right? You just practice to the best of your ability. And that's how you get better and better and better. And then eventually you will have manifested what you want. But manifesting only works if you do. So put the systems in place for your mind to understand where you want to end up and where you're trying to go and what you're trying to achieve. And give yourself the ability to see it and to feel it and to visualize it. And then just keep practicing. And until next time, practice those 5 steps, okay, in your next efforts to manifest, and stay fierce on your goals and get out there and unleash your something amazing. I'll see you next time, guys. Bye.